so great to see you here today. And we are on Disruptive Conversations. We're waiting for Kelly to come on. And in these conversations with entrepreneurs, educators, thought leaders, and authors, we're going to deep dive into the experiences that these women have had, the challenges that they have faced and needed to navigate and conquer in order to achieve their personal and professional success. And I'm waiting for, here's Kelly, and I'm Dr. RISA RYGER. Hi, Flower Power Daily. Hi, it's a sunny day. And here is the request for Kelly to come on. And Kelly, we're going to be bringing you on right now. Hang on one second. I'm going to continue telling you that I'm Dr. RISA RYGER. I'm an expert in change, and I help people make positive change at any point in their life. And in order for people to change, you need to disrupt. You can't have positive change without disruption. And so you have to disrupt a thought, a habit, a feeling, an action in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And here today with us is Kelly Hughes, who was so valiant. She wasn't feeling well yesterday. She's on with us today to bring her best. And I just want to give you a little bit of an introduction for Kelly, and then she's going to take it away herself. Kelly and I met at an event, and what's so fantastic is that you don't have to spend a lot of time with people to make connection. Kelly and I, we started our conversation, we hit the ground running. We had so much to say to each other, and the energy, the intelligence, the heartfulness that was there was so important, and we both felt really committed to joining our audiences and joining our communities to be able to learn from one another and learn more about Kelly and her journey in her life and what she has had to come up with. Now, Kelly is an incredible combination of woman who's been a model for, really has spent some years in modeling, which is an incredible tribute to who she is and her vision and commitment. She's also a mom. She's been a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model with a specific interest and a specific commitment to bringing information about pregnancy, post-pregnancy bodies for women. We're going to look at how we deal, accept, love our bodies, bring love to ourselves at all different ages and stages in our life. Kelly, I am so thrilled to have you here with us today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Dr. RISA. I'm so happy to be here and answer any questions that anyone has or share part of my story. And also, I love having you here as well, because like we shared earlier, it's from essentially my experience. And I just love that you're a clinical psychologist and expert of change. And that's what this is about, is just disrupting these conversations and coming together with actually a scientific reason why sometimes these things happen, so we realize they're normal.
Yes. We just lost you there for a second, but I want to say hi to Free CO2. Hi to Carlin Lives. Hi to Eric Krug. Thanks so much for coming and joining us here today. So Kelly, I gave you a little bit of an introduction. Could you please also just introduce yourself and what you'd like us to know about you?
Well, as you said, I've been a model for over 20 years now. And the fashion industry during that 20 years has really changed. Obviously, that's quite a long time, but the best thing that's happened is that there's been a shift in the industry to normalize all body types so that everyone is included. And this was something that impacted me directly after I had my son. I had my son 4 years ago, and I had a son, his name is Harlem. And this was an incredible moment in my life, but I was very concerned having my son, how would I get back to work? Because I essentially wanted a natural birth, get back to work as fast as possible. I knew that a C-section would be longer to get back to work. Essentially, I had a C-section in the end with complications against what I wanted, which is becoming so common, which is something I wanted to share about. But basically, when I did get back to work, I didn't just bounce back. And I think that's something that, and not just the fashion industry, I think all workplaces or all society as a whole expects women to just be who they were their entire life after having a baby, like 5 minutes later, like you said, put on their skinny jeans and just throw it all together, have their house in order and look perfect, and it's all back to normal so quickly, which obviously for some people it works out great and they have a fantastic labor, and other people it's a lot harder. And some people have not such a hard labor, but they struggle mentally and just juggling all these new changes. So we all have a different story and we all struggle, but the reality is we all struggle with these changes. So when I got back to fashion, back to work in the fashion industry, I wasn't a size 2 anymore. I was a size 8. So finding my place in the industry was a hard part for me because at that time they didn't have women size 6 or 8 at that time.
Right. As if they didn't have size 6 or 8s at that time, as if 6 or 8 shouldn't exist or didn't exist. And so that left out at least 80% of the population of women who don't fall into that size range. And now with zeros and double zeros and all that stuff going on, it's really wild. I share with you, I have had, C-sections as well. And we think things will go one way, they go another way. So I want to start, thanks so much for that great, perspective on who you are in your life. And I'd like to start, my first question to you is, like, what thought or belief did you need to overcome in order to achieve your 10.0 life?
I think that the hardest part for me was after having my son, I had a C-section, which the recovery was very difficult due to my experience with a C-section. And then I think it was really embracing my body, embracing who I had become, because I think it truly wasn't until I embraced that I experienced the power in it, because it obviously gave me this really deep strength, not only myself, but it also strengthened my relationship with my son. Like, we are just so close. He goes everywhere with me. If I can bring him everywhere, pretty much everywhere. And I think that it just made me value things differently, look at things from a different perspective. So truly it was just embracing all these changes, because it took me a really long time to do that. And I think that was part of getting Sports Illustrated and sharing my C-section scar with the world. That was the first time I've ever shared my scar. And I think it truly helped me heal, hearing the responses from so many women all over the world of how they felt the same way, and knowing that others out there felt the same that I did was so incredible, that they were empowered by my story, but I was empowered by their stories or their messages. So we were empowering each other. And that was what's so incredible about essentially having these conversations and bringing them up, because sometimes people want to minimalize these things, but these small things affect everything in our life. And if we're not good, essentially here, we're not good anywhere. And for us to be the best moms that we can be, the best women we can be, we need to be good within ourselves in order to be the best version of ourselves, right? So essentially, if we don't have that part of it, it doesn't matter how great you are at anything else, it kind of starts to crumble. So I think that was the most important for me, was just accept essentially who I was and love on that. And that's where I experienced the change.
I see that so often in my practice, where people hold on to an old version of themselves or an old picture of themselves, and maybe they hold on to a version of their body that they had when they were 18 years old or 20 years old. And it's as if that was the pinnacle. That was it. And that the striving is to go back to that. Mm-hmm. If you had some other issues, with your body, that's kind of the image. And to be able to embrace, and helping people from that point. And I think that one of the things that you talk about is being able to share your story, because people can feel very alone and very much struggle. I know in our conversation, we loved this, that it's like when you're pregnant, you're supposed to be proud of your baby bump and show it and wear all the tight clothes all around it. And then 2 days after you give birth, it's as if it shouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. That how do we, what do you think was helpful for you in really coming to terms with shifts in your body, and that it's not not only the shift, Kelly, but, but that where you are now isn't second best. It's not like, oh, well, I've really had to give this up, and now I'm at a lesser version, a more like a second rate version of me, versus really acknowledging where you are now.
I think the first thing that I had to realize was obviously I have this amazing child, right? So it's not all bad. So I think that there is so many great things that came from this. I, had my incredible son, and that is something that I would do all over again 100 times. So whatever happened to me is fine. But there is a part of that I'm still a human being, right? So I am a mom, and Harlem is my incredible son, and that's my amazing gift in this world that I feel like I've been given, right? But you have still your own, thoughts or your own feelings and your own desires. And you have to look in the mirror every day and love yourself. And I think that's the most important thing. Like I said earlier, how it affects everything in your life, from A to Z. So I think that the most important thing, because it took me a really long time to recover. I didn't get a chance to mention that I had a C-section. And then afterwards I had an infection from it. So I had to have another surgery. I was in the hospital for like 10 days, and it was a process. So a lot of things happen along the way, and that's not what happens in every C-section. But because my recovery took so long, I was 2-3 months out, still recovering, essentially, still healing physically, which doesn't always happen, but the mental side effect took much longer. So it wasn't until my son was really like, 2.5, 3, that I felt like I could see this breakthrough mentally. And I think the first thing you have to remind yourself is give yourself grace. Just give yourself time to heal. Give yourself the grace that you need for your body to go through what it needs to. I know that there's an expectation. 6 weeks out, you can get back to the gym, doctor approved. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the doctor says. If you're not ready to go back to the gym, don't force yourself to go back to the gym. Your body just delivered a child, and not only delivered a child, but now you have a baby at home. So just listen to your own self and give yourself the time you need. And the most important thing is, obviously, as we normalize these conversations, we understand that we're not alone. And I think that that's truly empowering. So it's great to have an outlet, of someone to talk to, resources, things like this, lives, just sharing from other mothers, younger mothers than you, older mothers than you. I think that we all have an experience. And as long as we're honest with ourselves and we share that, we can really encourage one another. So I think it's just really important to do that sometimes.
Right, that we go from a space of not necessarily shame, but a space of discomfort, of not really knowing, what am I feeling? Am I feeling something that's typical? Am I atypical? Am I the only person feeling this? And that there's, and that one step that's so important, and that we oftentimes bypass, is like, this is how I should be, this is how I'm supposed to be, this is how I'm supposed to feel, and that we don't adequately acknowledge what it is that we're actually experiencing. And then that becomes its own burden, because then we have to keep jumping over what we're really feeling to go to the space of supposed to. And I'm wondering, how you felt about that, perhaps, or how you felt in terms of what experiences you had and pressures of media that we all, that when we open our phones, we turn on TV, whatever it is, that we get all of these ideas about what we're supposed to and how it's supposed to change at times. One time you're not supposed to have a butt, right? You're supposed to have a butt. That you're supposed to be, then there was this horrible thing that we mentioned together, right? The heroin chic. That's unbelievable. So how have you managed, because you've been in this business, how have you managed all of this in yourself, for yourself, and to also bring your message out?
I think I was always very used to it, because in the fashion industry, the reality is there's always something wrong with you. Right? And that's been the ideal of the fashion industry. It's a very narrow idea of what beauty is, but that's the beautiful thing about fashion, is that they are finally changing. And that was something that I was very thankful to be a part of, not just showing my C-section in Sports Illustrated, which was such an empowering movement for so many, but also the fact that like I mentioned earlier, when I got back to work, there really was no place for me in fashion. And I think that was really hard for me to overcome. And I've always been told maybe I'm not tall enough, maybe I'm too pretty, I'm not pretty enough. my butt's too big or not big enough. You know, it's always something, right? But I think that that's what's so challenging being in fashion. And that's a job that I signed up for. So I've kind of built a thicker skin. It always concerns me for the really young girls because I have built this thick skin being in this industry. But at the end of the day, it's like when I got back to work and I realized that maybe I didn't have a job anymore, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? So the best part about it was about 6 months after I had my son, which technically I was still recovering and, you know, going through what I needed to go through, I started to get these requests from clients that wanted a size 6'8". And now it's open floor. Like they want all sizes in between, not just a 2'4", 6'8", or a 16. They want all the sizes. And that's been just such an incredible movement because I feel like I was such a part of that because I kind of didn't have a place, and then all of a sudden that place started opening up again. And I just think reflecting, I think that Good American was the first website that you could actually go on and see a jean in different sizes so that you can relate to it, because it's not about the size. It's like we should offer all sizes for all women and not make them feel like they're not included or that there's something wrong with their size, because all sizes are beautiful. We're all beautiful as women. So I felt the pressure, I thought, heavier than most just because of my industry. But when I realized that actually like all of society feels this pressure, I was in shock because I didn't know. So I think just working through it, like I said, just embracing and accepting the change was the most important part of all of this.
So okay, a little bit of takeaway for our audience, and these are some of the action steps and things to think about, is that one is that you persisted. And that, you know, we all, even like you who've like, you know, lived through all of this, like you had your hard times also, and your times, your moments of difficulty, your moments of uncertainty, and that what you were able to do was persist and, you know, stay with it, not give up. You know, we all have our moments of being disheartened, but these are that we can come through and we can get to the other side and to find that strength, even if you don't know how it's going to go, but to find that strength kind of at the moment to get you up in the morning, to get you back in the game, to get you trying again. And that is an incredible thing for, you know, for you. And what a great message for women. So I want to also ask you, you know, at this point in your life, with the incredible experience you've had and what you're bringing and giving for women, and I just saw a comment by someone that to mention, not you have to speak on that, for many women, and more than is acknowledged, that postpartum is a really serious time. It is no joke. It is not being a little down. It is not being a little blue, and that there are women who need to get more help. And whoever your partner is, if you're seeing that happen, help the person to get the help they need without shaming. And so what you're doing, Kelly, is going from shaming to sharing. And that's so important. And another question I have for you is, at this point, with all you've gone through, which is amazing, so thrilled you're here, is what do you think the next disruption is going to be in your life? What are you going to disrupt next?
I think that's a great question. I'm kind of navigating a few potential opportunities. I think that my main goal is just to continue these conversations and just be a light for people and share as much as possible, but not just for women, for children as well. I feel like children have so many questions. The other day I had a great question about, like, how do you share with your child about a C-section scar? Like, what do you explain to them that the scar represents? So there's just a lot of questions that my son is asking me. And I think that from all stages in life, we go through things, because motherhood is not just one stage, right? Every stage changes. So I feel that, like, everything that now, I mean, I shared my C-section scar, but now there's a bunch of other things that have happened since then. So there's a lot more to come, and I'm excited to share that with you, and navigating how I'm going to do it and where I'm going to do it. It takes a lot of planning and time, but I'm here to just help. And that's the most important thing. And I want to continue using any platform I have to share and help, because there are so many things, like you mentioned, with postpartum being such a real thing. And I've heard from other models that, you know, visually they look beautiful. They bounce back, they have it all together, they have the beautiful house, they have the husband, they have, it seems like this perfect package, but they're struggling, you know, with those hormones and the postpartum depression, and they don't know how to get out of it. And the reality is sometimes you just got to give them grace and just be there for them, because it's a matter of just time. And that's why I said give yourself the time. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself, or people around you shouldn't put pressure on yourself to feel good when you don't feel good. If you don't feel good, it's okay. And I think that that's something we've been kind of micromanaged to be told, that we're supposed to feel great all the time and wake up every day. And maybe, like you even mentioned with my work story, it's like every no is not a bad thing either, because if I didn't have the delivery that I had, which was not my plan, I wouldn't be here today talking about it. Because if I had the birth plan I wanted, we wouldn't have this conversation. So it's like sometimes things have to happen for bigger purposes. And I think that it's okay to go through harder moments. And I think the society today is just, we kind of like tap out really quickly these days. Like, if it's hard and it hurts, we just kind of run from it. And it's definitely not a bad thing. Like, I think that it builds who you are, it builds your integrity, it teaches you so many things, and it helps others. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the most important thing. So my full agenda is just to be transparent with anyone I come across. Like when I met you that amazing night in New York, I just was like, blah, you know, I just was like, oh my goodness, you're amazing. And I just shared, because it's so great to share. And I think that it's so uplifting, and be honest with each other. So that's my main goal in my future.
Well, it's so crucial, because, you know, when people don't talk about things, the messaging is that you shouldn't talk about it, it's bad to talk about it, or you shouldn't be even experiencing that to be talking about it. So when we open up these conversations, we're letting people know that it has words, it can be communicated, and there are people who really desperately need to hear these words. So you said something I'm sure our audience is going to wonder about. You said you needed to figure out something to tell your son about your C-section. So what did you tell him?
Oh, that's going to come soon. I can't share it yet. There's like a whole thing with that.
So,
but of course you want to, you know, if I'm telling the world that a C-section is great, I mean, not great, but it's like to love on your scars and embrace them. Now I have to explain it to my son, and I don't want him to reflect back on this scar on my body like he did it, right?
yeah.
So how do we communicate that? So that's coming soon. That's our next conversation.
Well, that'll wait for our next conversation. So should I say what I told my girls about it? Wait, what do you think?
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Okay. Because, well, also, you know, having girls, I also wanted to be really super careful about how I communicated what this scar was. And I gave it a lot of thought. And like one day, out of the blue, my daughter asked me about it. And I thought about it. I was like, psychologist mom, like that moment. And what I told her is, I said, that's my mommy's smile. and explained that that's where she came from. And so now I have my mommy smile. And I didn't say that. And as you have told your son, you don't say that just to say that. You have to be authentic. You have to be truthful, because our kids, just like us, and when we first met, we felt that realness and authenticity, which is why we're here together today, right? And and that we have to say things that we truly feel and believe. Our kids are smart. They'll suss us out. They know when we're hedging. You know that, right? Your kids are hedging. And so you have to be truthful and believe it yourself.
Yeah, I love that. It's actually the first time I actually heard of a smile, or it referred back to my C-section as a smile, the editor of Sports Illustrated, the day we were shooting MJ Day, which is such an incredible woman that's really transforming the fashion industry in so many ways. She looked at my scar, because I have 2 drain holes above my scar from my infection. So I actually literally have eyes, which are the drain holes, and a smile. And she's like, it's a happy face. And I was like, that is great. Like, I never really felt that. And it just made me feel that much more comfortable being on set, which was one of my first times being on set in a bikini, because I was still kind of accepting my body. And now I'm showing the scar that was the most vulnerable, insecure place on my body.
Sometimes what happens is that the places that are the most insecure, I know Kelly's buffering right now, the places that are the most insecure spots for us becomes our superpower. That becomes we learn so much from it. We do and that becomes our superpower. And so, so what I want to say, and what Kelly and I have talked about before, that this is Kelly's first time on this show, but we have so much more to talk about and acknowledge and just have this time together. This is the first time on our show together. There will be more conversations with Kelly. Can't thank you enough. And so for the audience, so one is to find the time, persevere, do what's doable. You have to bring awareness to yourself. If you see that you're getting into a tough spot on how you're thinking about your body, become aware of it, acknowledge it, and really ask yourself, are you really telling yourself the truth? Is there an alternate truth that you have that is really your truth, so that you can own who you are and get into the space that's helpful for you and to be able to grow and disrupt what needs to be disrupted, which is always available to you. And so remember, positive change can happen at any point in time. Thank you so much, George, Krista Didi, GoG27, and all of the people who came today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have another great disruptive conversation next time. See you then. Kelly, thank you for investing in your wellness so you could be here today with us.
Thank you.
Till next time.